Okay, we are live. We're up. What's up? We're, we're going to wait a little bit for what's for Carita to open, but I finally have an idea, and also, uh, yeah, I wanted to talk about this. I guess it has been. It is always kind of weird to talk about the whole process and such, but um, arriving at the proper conclusions this time took me longer than what I really expected. Also, besides the fact that this is something not so new, uh, here we are. We are going to see how it goes in terms of properly trying to understand anything. But so far, it should be well. Also, good evening, Sarah. I hope everything is going well. Let me. I don't have a. I need to open chat. And I forgot. I I love forgetting stuff. Give a second to. Yeah, here. And let me mute this one. Okay, we're fine. I guess. Also, I don't even know. Something quite funny is I don't have 7TV on my phone, so sadly I can't even see the 7TV emotes. But anyways, the point isn't that. The point is, what's the point? Nice question. I don't know. Let me see. Here we have Krita is open, so which one did I use? This one? I think it is Krita. Okay, here. This one. New create. Create, yeah. Please. New canvas. Exactly like that. New. Second just in case, and we should be fine, no? Yeah, with this we should be fine. Let me see. Is it working better now? Why isn't it lagging so much? Is it? It should be lagging. I don't know why it is not lagging. Anyways, um, so here we are. Here, move over here, and this is big enough. No, this is bigger than necessary even. Yeah. Size 40. No, not so big. Not so big. I think it is like a 9 works well. Yeah. Uh, yeah. A 9 works well. And also it has lag. Amazing. Anyways, the point of being here today, let me see. I think I shouldn't have anything else to say. So, anyways, going back to this. Good morning. Today we're going to discuss. I needed to search for proper definitions. I didn't do that. I probably am not going to use the proper ways to describe words. The whole field of semantics is something that still escapes my proper comprehension, I guess. So, about that, sorry, I should be doing a better work in terms of finally applying a little bit of my time to the study of the proper terminology and whatnot thing that I don't do because I tend to forget and I have always that's a completely different story, but excuses behind not doing things are always there. So the real point we're going to see something that I already tried to discuss very briefly. I, we have like a little bit more than 2 hours, so it should supposedly be enough. Um, it should so far give us more than enough time in order to watch completely this whole narrative unfold, I guess. But we will have to see. I don't really I don't really know if it is going to work so far or not. Um, it took me. Okay, let me begin a little bit. Um, what will be a proper title? Something along the lines of. I think something like this. So, anyways, as I wanted to say, it took me like. Is it with Z? Or is it with S? I think it is with S, but anyways, I wanted to say the real thing. It took me quite a while to properly express thing with a friend. So after having experienced that, I realized maybe I have it already to talk about it here, but I am not so confident to a certain degree. It takes too much time, and we were also talking about it before with this same friend. So it was like having finally the opportunity of expressing all of that fully, which I don't usually get even here. But anyways, an idea. Yeah, I think it should be like this. About, yeah, I think I haven't really tried to give it a short version, a short title, so somehow that's the most troublesome part so far. But about I guess at a certain extent, yeah, it works because it does classify itself, let's say, as an idea that is part of the world. So even if it doesn't seem to make complete sense to try and call it simply an idea about the world, it in the end it is something like that. So yeah, there you go. Here we have a title: analyzing an idea about the world and properly getting to understand it. Now, let me see. From here we come over here. Uh, So, okay. I think it should be understandable that I wish to minimally use a degree of proper terms. I don't wish to be so wrong. So give me a second. I want to see, is axiom the proper term in this case? Uh, I am okay. Yeah. Supposedly, it should be the correct term for this. So let me see. Wait a second. Is it influence? It should be influence, right? Uh, so, before saying anything else, before I start with an explanation that might as well go bad, let's say, because I don't fully remember everything, and as always, there is a certain degree of possibility of what I try to say being not even the correct kind of term, because I did not take into account that I was not ready to try and tackle such a topic, let's say. So, before that happens, where to find at the very least the beginning of this whole concept is in the book called Influence. This is something. Okay, this whole narrative comes from a field of, as far as I can remember, um, understanding how is it that different people and whatnot can be observed as, yeah, as in general, those who do indeed take actions and whatnot between themselves, and also how is it that you might as well gain the possibility of properly observing why is it that in some ways we are moved towards acting in any kind of direction. It isn't even explicit. There are different displays of how is it that in some ways we are indeed moved, but most of the time it isn't even part of the message itself or the content of the book. What is the final goal? It simply gives different examples in order to illustrate the concepts that are being discussed inside of it. So, in this case, inside of that, there is one very particular side that doesn't get fully explained. I have realized that doesn't get fully, as I try to do here, doesn't get fully exposed and fully shaped in what is the complete reality of it. It only has. I guess it wouldn't be too much of a lie or a problem to also say that it simply has too many negative things, at the very least in this one principle slash axiom, and with enough given patience, you can realize how is it that it properly works, let's say, so that you could realize a better way in which it happens. Um, Now, with that being said, let me move from here. We have a whole canvas. It is, to a certain extent, it is so good to have finally a whole canvas. It will take a little bit of a space to have all of this be present on anything. So we very well need the whole canvas. But let me. Uh, eh, why I make a tiny point there? Anyways. Okay, here. First thing. The easier one to get out of the way. In something that shouldn't be that hard to comprehend in any kind of way is that, in general, what is the concept of a human being also has the attribute of being something that is, as it says here properly, something that is socially subjected to different environments in which they might find themselves. This meaning that basically we are indeed people who needs to live inside of those different systems and societies which hold our existence in general, and because it is that we have such needs, you also realize that we are part of that. In this degree, it is that you also have, let's say, a second level of awareness or the capacity of understand what is it that you are trying to fit in, which role is it that as a human being you might as well be trying to incarnate, and it is in that you realize also how, to a certain degree, even if you are socially subjected, there are a lot of things that inside of those systems might as well not be so beneficial for anybody in general, and which are still sustained due to unreasonable motives which do not need to be so far still upkept in order to satisfy any kind of proper motivation of the whole system, let's say. Instead of this, there is also something that is the next point, let's say. Um, it's it should be okay. Let's do it like this. The next point is still a longer one, and after the next point, we can finally move into the whole sh- shorter explanation, I guess, or the shorter form to of a way to conceive this whole idea. If you if you get how these two different things connect with one another, basically, you can make the shorter axiom. Let's say, uh, Did my voice break? In which term? I am simply not talking. I am writing. I am trying mostly to focus in minimally well putting stuff here, but as far as I get it, no, my voice is well. I think so. I simply am quite silent today. Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I have been having quite a quite a tiresome week. Yeah, in that sense, it probably did a break at some point. Right now, it isn't so rough, but yeah, it was. It has been having a hard time. Let's say. Also, just in case, I haven't really drank that much water so far, and I have indeed just waking up. There is also that factor of wow, the morning voice and whatnot. Perhaps, maybe, we will see. If in some hours it is still like that, indeed it was more something in the lines of my voice is tired. If not, we can disregard it because it simply was environment. It simply was me being being not me, more like my throat being funky because I just arose, let's say. But yeah, yeah, okay. So so far there is it shouldn't be based on this older idea. It shouldn't be anything kind of new. That the next concept is also very much related to it, in which you discuss basically that how, due to the nature itself of the humans which we observe, let's say, you can realize with enough given time or with the proper way of observing that indeed all of these humans are quite attuned to what is the capacity to pick up and properly notice all the different social cues that exist in the environments in which they might find themselves in. This meaning, let's say that due to how we have always existed inside of different societies in any kind of way, the different things that we have inside of ourselves as humans have allowed for an even easier time in the capacity of recognizing what are all of those different subconsciously made basically guides towards the appropriate ways, yeah, appropriate ways in which anybody might be capable of interacting with the environment itself. And here, it shouldn't take that much time to understand that not only the environment is the place in which you live, but it also is, at the very same time, quite obviously, the society itself and the whole system which allows your existence. It isn't just the nature, but also the social side of the world, both combined in one thing, because at the same time, it doesn't happen that any human being is completely devoid of the society as long as they live in any normal kind of place. You will have almost the obligation of dealing with the world itself and dealing with any kind of problem, or not it isn't even about problems, it is more along the lines of dealing with different situations that do present themselves in any kind of environment, it doesn't need to be conceived as any kind of problem. We have more of an attunement to, yeah, we have more of a bias. That's the next part. We have more of a bias towards believing that things can only be seen from a negative consequence, and it it also has an explanation, but let me let me write out that. And also, yeah, my voice is incredibly weird. I noticed. And and it was even weirder the last week, I think it was. This week I have tried to not talk as much, and I don't feel like it is that much weirder now. I think so, but I can feel some things going back to their older places and whatnot. In terms of, wow, my throat is back to being funky. Anyways, that isn't the point. Uh, yeah, as I said, uh, okay, this I'm done. So as I said before, I don't really need to develop this one that much. Um, Sadly, we based on the different ways in which we have also analyzed what is the human being, we determined before that based on how the activity of the brain moves, we supposedly have based once again on our primal sides and our more instinctual aspects of the unconscious mind, we do possess a degree of bias towards what are the more negative and the worst things that do happen around us. That is why we do, as it says here, we do believe that we are affected more easily by what is negative. And based on this whole idea, going back to the origin of this concept, inside of the book, there is something very interesting that gets discussed, and that is how, sadly, due to how the human itself is so attuned to the negative aspects of any kind of interaction, and only the negative, it gets shown so easily why it is that we might as well have almost no way of properly solving what might be the next. And here it is finally, the first axiom, which is to a certain degree composed of inside of the book. It isn't exactly like this, but it is along those lines. Let me let me see. It is something along the lines of. Uh, ah, it is something like this. Trying to sum it up in a proper axiom and not have it be such a random concept. Trying to formulate it into one comprehensive sentence. The final idea that gets presented once again in the whole. It isn't the whole book. It is the final chapter of the book. Is this thing that suddenly, yeah, literally reading what it says here. Any kind of negative influence will multiply and increase the rate of appearance of said negative influence as long as it is given visibility. This was based around the proper analysis of what was the different ways in which, how, after different kinds of events being shown in the media, the rate of occurrence of said events was shown to be increased. And the problem was, as the book itself proposed or tried to discuss, that this is to such a degree something important that you can't even discuss, or it should not be so encouraged to discuss the kind of negative aspects about different events, because the capacity to imitate that we have as human beings, even if it is an unconscious thing, will move the whole societies themselves to imitate these things, because there were different examples to illustrate this whole thing. It it was only focused on the negative things, and it only contained this whole aspect about how, because we live in a world in which there are so many things that we might as well notice could be damaging to us, when the media interacts with the events themselves and makes them all completely accessible to the public, the rate in which these things happen gets increased. And sadly, it meant there wouldn't be any other way to illustrate this than without the proper examples. So I guess it will be kind of graphic, the next explanation. Sorry for that. It was shown that even in the different aspects of how things like accidents and even suicides are observed, when things like that get made more visible for the rest of the world, it means that the rate of similar occurrences of events will arise. And there is another side of this which I didn't display in any of this whole explanation. It is along the lines of, if I am not wrong, it should be a combination of these two kind of gives way to this next explanation. It has basically to deal mostly with this whole aspect of, we possess inside of our brains what we call um, mirroring brain cells, I think it is, or in in a more crude way, we kind of denominate them like that. I would like even to check. I call them mirror because I don't even. It is terminology that I don't even use that much, but it is mirror. Okay, there it is. Mirror neurons. That's the proper definition of what I am looking for. The different mirror neurons that we possess is what comes into action when we try to have all of these things observed inside of us, even if we possess the conscious capacity to recognize that said things might be negative, in the unconscious level, you start to acknowledge the existence of said things, and you might even begin to process said events as something that could be somehow explained as not so, yeah, as something not so bad and not so negative. Therefore, it happens that, let me put it like this. No, it isn't a brain cells, or it is brain cells, but not in this case. No. Others, no, others. Eh, So, until here, until here it is. I was thinking about it. This is everything that the book itself talks about. If you want a quick rundown of one of the chapters of the book, with all of this, you have a proper explanation. You don't need to worry about anything else. This is like, I think it is, I was trying to remember which one. I think it is like the seventh chapter or so. With this, you have the whole explanation of that, and you don't need to read the book. Uh, you, there is no more need to continue developing if we are only going to do a quick rundown about what the book itself talks about. But that isn't also everything, because it is in the analysis of this that you realize something quite interesting. As I said before, the book only focuses on this axiom, on this way of saying things, that only negative influences will get increased, because if they are given visibility, it it mostly referred to this whole idea of, as I tried to say here, the mirror neurons that we possess will allow the unconscious mind to accept and observe all of these influences, even if, as I said before, even if we can consciously classify them as negative, the unconscious mind will have the possibility of believing that because others did say things, it might as well not be such a bad thing to do. Therefore, the final analysis with which that chapter of the book was closed is, given enough negativity shown all over the different media, the possibility of finding ourselves in an even worse state years down the line might very well be increasing more and more each and every single year, because it seems that as we are capable of reproducing what we observe, the more we allow that side of negativity to exist in the social aspect, the more it will get solidified as a kind of behavior that, even if it is negative, we are capable of committing. And it meant, I think it left with a final take of, so far, it seems that the problems can't be discussed because even the act of mentioning the problems themselves might increase the risk at which we are, due to how easily influenceable we are towards acting in certain ways. That was the final analysis that it gave about this whole idea. And up until this point, I this is where I finished before. This is where I was only reading this book and I said, yeah, it makes sense, and sadly there is no possibility of properly solving things, because after all, it is quite understandable that all the different negative aspects of life are going to be accentuated even more if we do not even try to take action in order to prevent the occurrence of said things. But at the same time, one of the many examples that it gave in this whole concept was, even in those type of moments in which you believe that not showing what is the incorrect thing to do might help you, even in those cases, simply because you were shown what is the incorrect thing to do, you're biased to reinforcing said behaviors. And it gave a less graphic example in that case of littering, something that happens in almost every single city of the world. One of the worst ways with which you can try to fight that back is by showing how much littering occurs in your city, because the act of littering seems to be increased the more it is shown that the littering doesn't get fully condemned inside of the society in which you live. And that made sense. That, once again, so far it makes sense. It doesn't need any other explanation. It is based on different principles that might as well help to deal with a little bit of psychology, or as it says, this is more about biology, for example. There are different things that we don't need to worry about so much, but there was something that wasn't fully taken into account, and there is an incredibly easy way in which this doesn't need to be only about the negative aspect. This doesn't need to be only about the problem itself that you suffer in life, let's say. Um, Also, good good day, player. So far today, I will say it is a great day. Um, as it is happening here, I I get to articulate something that I had been thinking about for so long that I am certainly happy. I am certainly happy. Um, I guess we are talking about it, so I could give it to you today. This one problem kind of haunted me for quite a long while, and only I was only after I was capable of getting how to solve it, I can have let's say a better life. And no, don't worry, don't worry. I think it is also kind of necessary for me to say it, because it might not seem that much of a problem for other people until you can realize that indeed it is quite a horrible notion to have or to live with. Um, because a kind of a quick rundown on what is this whole explanation here. We're talking about a concept that was shown in a book that refers to the whole idea of how different influences that we have as human beings move us to act in our environment. And also, as social creatures, we do possess quite a high degree of mirroring based on what we observe in said environments. And the final analysis that the extract from which this explanation begins with leaves is this one final axiom, let's say. Any kind of negative influence will multiply and increase the rate of appearance of said negative influence as long as it is a given visibility. That is the whole thing. The whole concept shortened in one single paragraph, let's say. All of that is the problem, and is, as I said before, what was quite a bad ending, because you can't only focus on what is bad, but at the same time, um, it is much easier to fall into the negativity of one's life rather than embracing the positives and trying to teach yourself to be happy even with the bad. Yeah, yeah, certainly that is also true, but it doesn't only work like that. It instead of this one saying, instead of this one thing, it should be, once you can give it enough time to think about it, basically, you realize how easy it is to find the proper solution. Like, there is nothing else that you needed to add to this whole formula to understand how it can be seen as anything kind of beneficial to life. Or not just the negative thing, once again. And that is the problem of the book that borns this whole idea. It only mentions bad things, and I think, from a personal perspective, I am pretty sure it doesn't consciously decide that it is only negative, but because it is going on since before on the different examples that do arise. Once you take into account what are the negatives, it loses sight of the possibility of there being any kind of good thing inside of this one concept that tries to be displayed. And that is why, once again, it can only show how there is bad and how there is something wrong with the way in which we communicate about things. And well, I mean, obviously, that is kind of a different thing, no? That sometimes we do have the possibility of solving problems simply people aren't willing to. That is, I would say, probably that is the biggest thing always in life. Sadly, we, I think a proper way to see it is that, be it because of any kind of reason, we live in a world, or yeah, the modern society accepts that you give up before even having tried to solve your problems. And sadly, the degrees of unwillingness are, I will say, almost at an arisal since almost centuries. It is like this whole negative narrative is becoming more and more the popular thing, but it doesn't mean that the, it isn't a problem that you are unwilling to take the actions towards the solution itself. It simply is a problem that you can't do what is needed to solve the problem, but you can find a solution. And that is already more than enough, let's say, because we still have problems which we haven't found any kind of proper solution to. Like, yeah, always one of the worst, and at the very same time, best examples to illustrate this is we still have different types of diseases which we have no way of solving because we don't know how to properly deal with them. But at the same time, we have a lot of ways in which we know that the most basic degree of healthcare can be sustained in any kind of single individual. And even if you, in your subjectivity, can't take the different steps towards being capable of sustaining that for your own self, it doesn't mean that we haven't explained that. It doesn't mean that we don't have them at all. It goes into a different area of life, obviously. Once again, sadly, if you're not willing to take the steps that you need to in order to have less problems, it is true that there are ways to solve them. But I am sorry that you're not willing to do those things. Let's say it doesn't mean that there isn't. Once again, it doesn't mean that there is no solution for that. And the problem, let's say like this, the problem that we're observing here is that to begin with, this only talks about negative stuff. And this problem also has a proper solution. And this problem can be indeed solved quite easily, I will say. So let me try to write out. I don't know if I am forgetting out anything. It doesn't really take that much more from here, but let me see. Just in case I. Okay. I remember. There is only one thing that gets not properly mentioned here, because tracing back to the book itself, influence, the book only talks about different types of influence that we experience ourselves in life. Doesn't really take that much into account the different types of freedomness, capacities to live a better life, let's say, in general, outside of how we are easily, once again, influenced by our environment. So it loses sight of the concept of will or free will or however you wish to call it. So the problem is also I need to structure this in an understandable and short sentence. It is something along the lines of, I think it is like, I don't know. I would say it probably has to deal with the side of it. We do have a bias towards the negativity that has been shown. You are given a bias towards negativity because it is easier to identify the problems than to be capable of realizing which things are already good, let's say, in life. You need to be capable of identifying what might kill you rather than to have a happy existence, let's say. You need to that is more along the lines of psychology and how anxiety exists. You need to identify the problems that exist in your reality. That is why you're wired internally towards the negative thing. Sadly, as you say, the bizarre thing is we accept to be constantly worried about everything and constantly preoccupied about any kind of negative stuff happening. But sadly, that is also the problem. Sadly, it has an explanation as to why it exists. It isn't like, wow, I don't get it. Why is the world so depressed? If you say something like that, I am sorry, but you haven't lived enough. ah, uh, well, certainly that is kind of the one of the main problems of being a responsible being, no? That you can realize that you have the possibility of acting and realize that you do indeed possess a degree of quality which allows you to exert yourself and change those situations for others. It goes into a different side, but also it has to deal with this whole concept of learned hopelessness, sadly. After some point, you realize that you are living with people who have given up on a lot of things. And one of the easiest ones is to say, let's say, that, you know what, I don't even need to worry about this whole world. And I don't need to believe in any kind of degree that I might as well possess the capacity of helping others because it has already been shown to me that when I tried to do so, not only did I get hurt, I also didn't truly change anything at all because the people around me, which I tried to help, and with the people which I tried to be with and to properly guide them towards anywhere, showed me. that it was impossible to do so, or the situation did only get worse after enough repetitions of that, I I am pretty sure I can say this is no more anything minimally worth trying to have in my life, let's say. So sadly, that degree of once again learned hopelessness is also a problem of life that people needs to deal with, but it doesn't get so easily solved. I mean, that is partially why things like therapy and such exist, because you have the possibility of solving that, but you need to realize it. Also, dogs. So, while my dogs bark, I will drink some water. Give me a second. What is going on with? I love how incredibly noisy they get sometimes. At some point, they will shut up. At some point, it will happen. So, I guess patience, or if not, technical difficulties. Ah, and they didn't shut up. I had time to make this whole thing, and they didn't shut up. This is amazing. Okay, there it is. Thank you. No more dog noises. Thank God. Anyways, continuing. Continuing with what I was trying to say. So far, it shouldn't be anything kind of abstract what I am trying to present. Anything kind of new or conceptually that huge of a leap. I suppose. I guess. Yeah, barking difficulties. Oh man, I love my dogs. Anyways, um, as far as we get it here, are they really are not going to shut up? Oh my god! Oh my god! I love them so much. What a nice thing to have animals. Okay, they had some problems, but I went ahead and dealt with those problems myself because they weren't going to shut up at any point. It seems. Anyways, I edit, undo, redo. Oh yeah, let me rearrange the whole monkey. Anyways, no, I mean it is more along the lines of telling the dogs themselves to shut up, basically. The good old shut up scream that you give them when they are barking too much. Screaming, barking too much. But yeah, no, yeah, it isn't. It isn't screaming. It is barking. And yeah, I mean, obviously, to a certain degree, animals do understand, so they have, at the very least, shut up integrated to their language knowledge, to their whole dictionary of words, which they can properly attend to. But, anyways, continuing, before they start to bark again, this thing, so far, it shouldn't be that much of a conceptual leap. We're talking about different things that are associated with how any human being might have a possibility of mirroring different things that happen in their environment based simply on how we naturally do observe and imitate all of the things that happen. But this also means something important: the capacity of also imitating what we internally could classify as good is also there. And there it is that with this assumption, you realize something. At the very least, that was where I personally finally understood what this thing is about, what this whole idea is about. I don't know. I probably should copy that instead of deleting it, but it works incredibly well when you can simply remove what is necessary here. It isn't in any kind of way a new axiom that you needed to create. It simply is based on what I said before. You can do it. Therefore, you can pick up anything. Therefore, the proper way of saying this isn't any kind of negative influence will multiply and increase the rate of appearance of said negative influence as long as it is a given visibility, but rather it isn't in any kind of way a new sentence, it isn't in any kind of way something rare. And that is why I said the book has a problem with focusing on the negative things. It isn't about the negative aspect. Any kind of influence will multiply and increase the rate of appearance of said influence. As long as there is somebody who can observe that, as long as it is given visibility, no matter if it is good or bad, it will get increased instead of the context because we by nature are made to imitate what happens around us. It isn't just about the problems, it is about any kind of thing that gets observed being imitated. And that is why I said before so many times the book only talks about the problem. It doesn't realize that what they are giving you isn't conceptually so bad. Any kind of way of portraying the world could be imitated by others if if what you are doing, if what you understand, if what you have discovered, if what is being worked on gets shared, it isn't just about the problems. And that is where the book fails to convey this. That is where there exists the lack of realization that, once again, it isn't about negative influences, it is about any kind of influence. And that is, for me, that's the final point. That's where it finally ties back from this into this, where it finally makes sense, let's say, because it isn't a novelty, it isn't any kind of new discovery. It's once again, you're simply reformulating the same sentence by removing two words that you can realize how it properly works. And the book itself has a problem with reaching this conclusion because what we also mentioned before, we have too much of a bias towards the negativity. But once you can adopt this understanding about reality, and once you can gain the possibility of not being so bound by the problems, you realize, let's say, that, and to a certain degree, it kind of ties back to what we mentioned before. Even if sometimes the responsibilities that you have and the problems that you wish to solve seem so hard to do, to properly get solved and whatnot, by simply working on that, you're already creating something not only inside of your own reality, but something that goes beyond what is your own life, the realization for other people that there is a possibility of doing correctly, dealing and getting rid of those things that affect them negatively. So there was a final way to say it. It was along the lines of perceive, isn't it percibe? Anyways, let me. I think, yeah, it isn't that much of a completely understandable thing to say, but I do see it in the final analysis as something like that. That the whole world, let's say, gains a little bit once as an individual. One gains the possibility of assuming how useful their actions could be instead of the existence itself that they have. Be it any kind of thing, be it any kind of action, as minimally good as it is, just by the nature of it being, it already affects correctly and usefully the rest of the world. Once again, the problem is to not over focus only on the negative. That is, I think, the big story of almost any human being. That there are too many negative things that you wish to focus on, because after all, we are created towards the avoidance of problems, but it doesn't mean that doing what is good will have no good effect on the life of just ourselves, let's say. But I think that goes a little bit more beyond what is being discussed here, because this the main here the main axiom is only this, and the main axiom is only about the influence of anything. And what I am trying to talk about in the end is a little bit more about kind of what we said before. I already expressed the responsibility of being capable of acting on what you have realized yourself is or could be called something good. And that is a little bit beyond simple influence. But at the very least, it's a solution for what seemed to be such a depressive statement. Because I said it before, when I saw that this was only about the negative consequence, I got, for a second, for a little bit of a while, it was kind of depressing to understand that there might as well be no way of solving a problem, because by simply mentioning a problem, you're increasing the awareness of it, but also you're increasing the rate of occurrence of said problem. The solution lies in realizing that working to solve the problem, being able of acting towards not having any more, say, the negative things happening, is also an influence. It doesn't need to be only about the negative ones. Life isn't only about the negative things that happen inside of it. Luckily. So yeah, that's everything that I have to say basically. That's that was my whole discovery of the week, I guess. I don't know. I guess that's, as I said, that will be so far from me. All I wanted to really discuss. I reached that conclusion, and the moment in which I found it, it was the closest experience that I had to any kind of revelation, I guess. But that's it from me, at the very least. That's all I can say. I simply, once again, tracing back to other things, I simply hope it is understandable, and that anybody who tries to listen to this understands beyond only the first part of the negative influences and whatnot, because the final axiom presents such an incredibly positive outlook towards what could be the capacity of changing any kind of system based simply on the influences that one single individual might have on that particular system, that it could very well be called, as I described it to my friend, one of the easiest to understand concepts to self-motivation, let's say. I believe so, but I don't know, I might be, as always, also saying a little bit more than what is necessary. Anyways, I guess that's it. I have nothing else to say for today. That's everything I really wanted to say. Next time, it will probably be something less important, I guess. I This is as much of a meaningful thing as it gets. Um, but yeah, if you once again, if you want to properly understand any of this, don't hear me. Go and read the book. Go and read the original book of Influence. Once you can see what I'm talking about, you realize that indeed it only focuses on the bad things, but it also, because of how it is ignoring things, it gives you quite a good way into how the solutions might arise. At the very least, in this one chapter that talks about the negative influences and whatnot. But yeah, um, thank you. I guess, as always, thank you, because I don't know, I wouldn't have thought before, let's say a year ago, I was going to be even close to talking about something of this nature. So yeah, that's it from me. Give me a second, because here, um, yeah, that's everything so far. I have nothing else to add. I will take the screenshot of this to save it for later, as always. But I have nothing else to say. Um, I don't think rather I can properly say anything else on par with that whole thing. It is simply it is simply too much. To a certain degree, it was something that had me incredibly worried. But solving that gave me enough satisfaction for quite a while. So we will see what is the next thing. But at least for today, I give you that. Go and do something good on the world. Be an incredibly influential existence upon this saddened reality in which we live, and realize that indeed it doesn't need to be so much of a bad thing, because the world itself believes that we can only focus on bad, but it ignores how much of an influence it also has the whole good aspect of life, which does exist, and which we have the pleasure even of talking like we do today. So yeah, I don't know. Anyways, let me see. Can we even try to rate somebody? Yeah, as always, thanks for everything. And I don't know, if I had to be honest, probably go and read something. That's more useful than any other thing. Go and read. I will say a little bit of Nietzsche. That's quite a wonderful author. But yeah, let me see. If not, you can also indulge on those pleasures that are the distractions of life, and you can move your mind away from any other thing that is that is happening in existence. You can ignore anything else. Because after all, that is partially what I said before, no? That you can do whatever you want in life. And that also comes with you might have the possibility of doing something that could as well be not so interesting for you. So one chooses what is the next action in this whole narrative that is our existence. So yeah, have a have a nice one. And simply, I guess, simply remember what was said here and see if it can be used in any kind of way in the rest of your life. Because it is, once again, even if not that much of a deep thing, quite a useful concept. So yeah, as always, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for lurking. Thanks for watching the world. Thanks for all. We will see what will be the next concept next time. Ah, and yeah, we will see what will be the next thing that I can finally talk about. But yeah, that's the stuff. Remember that you are incredibly important. So much more than what you can even realize sometimes. So yeah, be capable of acting on that. And be capable of moving others also to act on that, if it is a possibility for you. Because, gladly enough, even if we believe that we are isolated from the rest of the world, we are not even close to the disappearance of our existence in the rest of the society. So yeah, anyways, think a little bit more. I shouldn't do that in your place. So yeah, now distract yourself. That is something different, something more important. As I said before, distractions. Here we are going to read a sketch who is playing Dark and Darker. Go and watch that. Go and ease your mind. Don't use too much your brain also, because as it happens to me even, you get tired after a while. So yeah, thanks for all and have a nice one. Goodbye.